Hello everybody and welcome to Emerald Cottage. My name's Jill and this is my corner of the internet to talk about all things crafty, yarny, woolly, crochet-y, knitting-y, sewing-y, all those kind of things. Today I've got another discussion for you around the TV show Game of Wool. It's episode 2 this week. We lost, who did we lose last week? We lost Gordon last week. So we've got 9 knitters remaining. And we'll have a bit of a discussion about the episode and how it all went. But before that, do you like my cardigan? It's my Wicked inspired cardigan. I'll have to stand up and give you a quick twirl. There we go. Look at the back of it, isn't it cool? Really pleased with it. So I wanted to knit a so I've got knitting on the brain. I wanted to crochet a cardigan to wear to the new film that's coming out, Wicked for Good, which is the second Wicked movie. Because I'll be going to see it with my son Ryan. We both love Wicked. We loved the first movie, we thought it was brilliant, so we're really excited to see the second one. And I'd seen on Facebook a similar design being done, so I thought I'd try and do one myself. So it's a granny hexagon cardigan. I very loosely followed a pattern on the Hobby, or Hobby, however you want to say it, website, but kind of made it up myself a bit as I went along. So it's the basic granny hexagon, as you can see. It's like 2 L-shaped pieces that you seam together up the back, and it's got cuffs for the sleeves to bring them in a bit, which was my first time doing a ribbing on the edging like that. And you can see it's brought them in quite nicely. They are quite balloony, which is fine because it's just there's not very much shaping in this cardigan. And then there's a ribbing around the edge, and the ribbing is just if you can have a bit of a closer look. Let me see if I can show you. The ribbing is done by doing front post treble crochet and then back post treble crochet. You just alternate those as you go along, and it produces this ribbed effect. You see, it's nice, isn't it? So I'm very pleased with it, very happy with it, and it's very comfy to wear, really cozy, and yeah, I love it. I just love the colours. So the yarn I used was 2 brands actually. I wanted to use Stylecraft Special DK and I couldn't find the right pink in my local yarn store. So the pink is actually Hayfield Bonus DK. That's this one here, Bonus DK. And it's the colour Deep Rose. And that's the pink. And the green one is Stylecraft Special DK in the colour Leaf. So yeah, it's a mixture of those 2 yarns, Bonus DK and Special DK. And I used just over 3 balls of each. Annoyingly, I had to buy a 4th ball of each. And I literally used maybe like 5 meters from each new ball. Very, very frustrating. But if I'd done it maybe 1 round less, I might have had just enough. But I didn't want to run out, so I went and bought 1 ball of each and had those to use anyway, so it was fine. And that was only an extra like £5, so it wasn't very much. So yeah, really happy with it. It's super cozy and super warm, and it's just, yeah, it's really lovely. Really happy with it. So that's my Wicked cardigan. So anyway, without further ado, let's get into the chat about Game of Wool. So this week is week 2. I'm not going to knit this week because I'm working on a knitting project. I need to count stitches and I can't do that while I'm chatting, so I'm going to leave that for another video. Episode 2. So first of all, we see Tom. So Tom is wearing this week a fantastic cardigan. It's a Hope Macaulay cardigan. Hope Macaulay is a Northern Irish knitwear designer, and there's a great programme on iPlayer about her. So it's called, looking at my notes here, True North, the Social Knitwork, KNIT work. True North, the Social Knitwork, and it's on BBC iPlayer. It's about half an hour, and it talks about how she uses local knitters to knit all her pieces, and all her pieces are done using like hand knit. Do you call it hand knitting or arm knitting? Where she's not actually using needles as such. She's just physically putting her arm through and putting a loop through. Or her knitters are doing that anyway. But it's a really interesting programme. I suggest you go give it a watch if you're interested in finding out how those cardigans are made. So yeah, so he's wearing this Hope Macaulay cardigan. And can we just take a moment to discuss his eyeshadow? Oh my God, glittery eyeshadow. It looked amazing. I loved it. Lots of talk in my knitting group about how it was over the top, but I loved it. I thought it was great. Really just brought out his character and just was Tom all over. I'm getting too hot now. Just take this off. So yes, so that's Tom this week, and it's Hope Macaulay and his glittery eyeshadow. This week's solo knit is, it's Icons week apparently, and the solo knit is they've got to make an iconic doggy outfit, and it has to be iconic to them. They have to use both knit and crochet, and it has to be a two-piece outfit that must fit well, and it has to fit the shoulders and the neck and the arm holes and the rump, as they call it, the back of the dog. They have 12 hours. They've got to make a coat and a hat. They've got 12 hours to do it in, and they've got to fit them to two beautiful Italian greyhounds that we meet later. Beautiful dogs called Dinah and Dobby. Really sweet. And Holger, who is a Savile Row tailor, I want to say, has made a dog mannequin. Of course he has. It's so cute. So he's made, they were given the measurements that the coat had to fit, and he's made a dog to that measurement so he can try his coat on his own mannequin, which is brilliant. So as I mentioned, they've got to use knitting and crochet. So we get these suddenly technical pictures of knitting and crochet with Tom discussing how to knit and how to crochet, and they're rather weird pictures. So somebody else said they might be AI generated, and that might be the case, but the one for Tom says knitting uses 2 needles and then the picture has 4 needles. So what's that all about? And they look a bit like DPNs, but they're not in the right configuration, so it's a very strange picture. The crochet picture has a hook that looks more like a boat hook than a crochet hook, but I guess the principle is there for knitting and crochet, knitting being 2 needles and crochet being 1 hook. Anyway, let's move on from that. So what are their designs going to be? Well, Meadow, who, if you remember, is the 18-year-old from Belfast, she is making a Freddie Mercury inspired yellow jacket with a lovely wee crown on top. She's fairly confident about it, I think. Yeah, fairly confident. We then see Dipti. Dipti's making a unicorn, because she's what's more iconic than a unicorn, and her design is very blingy and very sparkly. She's using tinsel yarn, which is quite a brave move, and she says she's using that to knit with because crochet is too hard in tinsel stitches, and I would agree with that actually, that crocheting with tinsel yarn is really challenging. Personally, I think knitting with it is really challenging as well, but she says she finds it easier, although she's not a knitter. So we'll see how that works out. Lydia is doing a Notting Hill Carnival inspired design. So funny, she admits she's not a dog person. She goes, "People of Britain, I'm not a dog person." Just so funny. Addresses the nation. Again, she's using tinsel yarn. She's making a lace top and a feathery crown. Then we have Isaac, and Isaac studied in Philadelphia. So he is using the mascot from the ice hockey Philadelphia Flyers team as his design inspiration. He's using crochet loop stitches, so we'll see later lots of big lovely loops, and he's very stressed about the amount of time it's going to take, which last week he was quite low on time and seemed to overestimate what he could get done, so we'll see how that goes. We then look at Simon's design, and Simon is taking his inspiration from iconic Gothic architecture because he's a builder, and he's doing moss stitch stonework. He's including a Gothic shaped arch which he wants to inlay with crochet stained glass, which sounds lovely, doesn't it? And a bell shaped hat. He admits he's not a crocheter, so crochet is new to him, so the stained glass bit will have to be a challenge for him. We meet again Stephanie. Stephanie was the lovely lady from, I can't remember where she was from, but she was the very excitable older lady. She is using as the inspiration Chelsea pensioners. Now initially when she said Chelsea pensioners, I thought of Pearly Kings and Queens. So I was thinking she's going to have to sew lots of buttons on, that's going to take a lot of time. But no, not Pearly King and Queen, it's Chelsea pensioner, which is, I think is something like retired army veterans, and they wear like a red coat. I'm not quite sure. So anyway, she's going to make her coat double stranded to give it lots of structure, and I guess speed things up as well. It won't take as long to knit. And she's crocheting a black tricorn, like a 3-pointed hat. Yeah, so that's her design. Then we have Tracy. Tracy is using as her design David Bowie as Ziggy Stardust. So she's using mosaic crochet to make her coat. So again, it'll be quite thick coat. The judges look very concerned about that. And then she's also using making a David Bowie inspired, I want to say, wig for the hat. Is that the right word? I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure how that's going to turn out, so we'll have to see how that progresses. Then we have Holger. So Holger is using as his inspiration 18th century Italian theatre performance art. It's like, what? I'm sure it's iconic, but who's heard of that? It's so bizarre. He's just brilliant, Holger. I love him. Even he admits it's highfalutin. That's the word he uses, highfalutin. And his design is a stripy pink and white coat with big balloon sleeves for the legs. Then Ilse, who's Glaswegian, is she Glaswegian? She's using as her inspiration a Glaswegian statue of the Duke of Wellington, which always has a cone in its head. She's using intarsia with very clever brushing, like graffiti style, and lots of shadowing. It looks great. And this wee cone on the dog's head. It's so cute. And then the judges come to Meadow, who we discussed earlier, is doing a Freddie Mercury inspired design. And they say to her, "Oh, you're using a twisted stitch. Is there a reason for that?" And she's like, what now? And turns out that she's doing something like wrapping her yarn under rather than over or something. And the judges say that that's producing a twisted stitch, which is too tight. Meadow then just says that's how she knits. She's totally unaware of that. Tom intervenes and says, "Oh, it's a common mistake made by new knitters," alluding to the fact that Meadow's a new knitter. She's not a new knitter. She's been knitting since she was 6, so she's been knitting for 12 years. So, bit of a kind of misleading comment there from Tom, I think. Simon is struggling with his crochet because, as he says, he's not a crocheter, and he says his stained glass panel is totally winging it. And he's simplifying his design considerably to what he had planned to do. So yeah, so a few struggles, most people coming along quite well. Then Tom says 30 minutes left and they all go into a big panic. But this week Dipti is able to talk to Tom, so when he says how's it going, she's able to tell him and not just bite his head off, which is a bit of progress from last week. So last week, remember, she said, "Tom, I don't have time." Just shut him up, talk to the hand. So we have the last 30 minutes, and I say it's all a bit of a panic, and they're finishing off their hats. And then the time is up, and out come the 2 Italian greyhounds, Dana and Dobby. Oh, they're so cute. They are gorgeous dogs. And they come out wearing each of the outfits in turn, and they're just so sweet. And some of them, you can tell they're not thrilled about the hats, but I think on the whole, they look okay. Friends of mine said, "Oh, they shouldn't have had real dogs. It's cruelty to animals." I'm not sure I would say it's cruelty to animals. I think they're possibly not the most comfortable dogs ever. But I guess they picked them because they're new. They're not new to working with cameras and, I guess, dog walks. But anyway, they're fine. So the first outfit they have on is Dipti's unicorn outfit, and Dipti has a wee cry with tears of joy. The hat comes off, so the dog immediately shakes its head and the hat comes off. But the unicorn coat is amazing. It's really, really colourful, and it's done this as I say beautiful tinsel yarn, so it's all fluffy and it looks amazing. And the unicorn's got a great horn in it. It looks fantastic. We then see Lydia's Notting Hill Carnival glittery feather and fan lace, which is a great fit on the dog and has this kind of feathery hat. We see Tracy's. Tracy is the lady who loves the embellishments, and she's got a mad headpiece for her David Bowie for her mad headpiece for her David Bowie inspired top, and it's got like a massive pom-pom on it about this size. It's huge. It's brilliant. So that's Tracy's. We then see Ilse's. So Ilse has done intarsia knitting for the lettering. I don't know what it says, but let's say it says dog. I don't know what it says. And she's done some shadowing to make it look 3D. And then she's brushed the yarn to make it look all kind of spray painted. It's brilliant. It's a really good design. And she's got a little traffic cone in her dog's head. It looks so cute and stays on, which is good. We then come to, where are we? That was Ilse. Isaac. So Isaac's dog shook the hat off straight away. He's done a lot of crochet loop stitching on the edging, and the hat looks fab, but as I say, it's not a good fit, but it does look fantastic. Simon, with his stained glass motif. Now, he had initially planned this stained glass motif that was going to be really colourful and fit in this kind of gothic shaped window, but because he's a new crocheter, he struggled with that and it got too big too quickly. So he couldn't add all the colours he wanted, so he ended up with a very basic but very big motif which didn't fit in the panel and wasn't as colourful as he'd hoped, so that he was marked down for that, I feel. Meadows, Frankie Mercury, who's he? Freddie Mercury inspired coat. It's bright yellow but too tight, and the crown is excellent but not secure enough, so the crown again wobbles straight off, but it's a great little crown with a lovely little kind of regal, you know, that kind of crown trim that's kind of white with black, like ermine trim or whatever it is. Looks fab. We then come to Holger. Oh, and Di cries again. Oh, it's so beautiful. So is this going to be a weekly thing where she cries every time? The most beautiful outfit. The hat stays on and she says flawless. That's the word she uses, was flawless. And then finally we have Stephanie's, and Stephanie's looks fab apart from the join. Hers was the Chelsea pensioner. Looks fab apart from where she's joined it underneath. It's a bit messy. And they're concerned about the stiffness of the coat, which again she deliberately chose to be that way because of the double stranding on her knitting. And then there's no engineering on her hat. Her hat's just plunked on and consequently doesn't stay on, so they work around on that. So that's all the solo challenge done. Then we move on to the team challenge. So this week there are 9 of them left, obviously, because we lost one last week. So they put them in 3 teams of 3, and they've got to come up with an iconic 80s jumper. So they're given a vintage, original 80s pattern for a jumper, and they've got to modify it to their own design whilst maintaining the kind of main structure of the pattern. They have to make it in mohair, and they have to use intarsia, and they have 10 hours to do it. Oh, and it's judged blind. Don't forget the judges go out for this, so the judges don't see who's doing which one. So the first team is Ailsa, Meadow and Stephanie. And that's Ailsa's the quiet Scottish one, Meadow's the Northern Irish one, Stephanie is the very excitable older lady. And they decide to do, I think it's Meadow's idea, they do a guitar icon on the front of theirs, and they plan to do with a couple of sleeves and I think some music notes on the front and back. It's very complex design, and Meadow says she wants to do the main guitar motif on the front, but she's not too good at intarsia. I think she's never done intarsia before, so that remains to be seen how that goes. Second team is Holger, he's the German guy, Tracy, who's the embellishments lady, and Lydia, who was the lady who did the Ghanaian, is that a word, Ghanaian, from Ghana inspired top last week. Their team has a lot of friction because Tracy just wants embellishments. She just keeps going, we can add bows, we can add sparkles, we can add sequins, we can add this, we can add that. Holger's going, no, we don't want any of that, we want it really plain. And she's going, yeah, but we can add embellishments at the end. And he's like, no, we can add it really. So poor old Lydia has to play referee between them. The two of them are just arguing constantly about how the one wants embellishments and one wants really plain and minimalistic. So a bit of a kind of clash there. And then the third team is Simon, who was the builder, Dipti, who was the one who did the unicorn one, who told Tom last week she didn't have time to talk to him, and Isaac, who's a student who did the silly goose motifs last week, and constantly says he's worried about time. And they choose a design which has got balloons, I suppose a bit like as in 99 red balloons, although they're not red, they're white, has white balloons, on a pink and black and white background with, they use the strings of the balloons as pieces of yarn. And it's a really, again, quite challenging design because they've got lots of curves in their picture. So yeah, and Tarja for the checkerboard team, which is, I should say, Holger, Tracy and Lydia, they want this black and white checkerboard on an angle across the jumper. So their design is quite straightforward because it's all straight lines, whereas the other two teams both have curves in their designs and balloons in the guitar. So it's a lot more complicated because it's trying to make curves out of straight lines. So, you know, so instead of going like that, it's going to have to go like that and zigzag its way down. So a lot more complicated. What do I need to say now? So for the guitar team, it's Meadow's first time in Tarja, and she's very stressed about it. They have to change the shape due to a time constraint, and then losing a sleeve, so it becomes an off the shoulder, kind of under the armpit type style jumper. And they have a bit of a design chat about how they're going to achieve that look. Holger's team is also losing a sleeve, and Lydia suggests a big bow on the shoulder. Holger is not happy, but Tracy is thrilled because getting an embellishment. Holger's like, oh, I don't really want this. So that's the change that they make to their design. The balloon team are progressing well. They seem to be doing okay. They haven't made any changes to their design. We go back to the guitar team, and the guitar team is not progressing well. They're having a major panic because they, as I said earlier, are doing an off-the-shoulder design. So they had planned in their picture to leave the right shoulder, I think. Well, it doesn't really matter. They'd planned to leave one shoulder uncovered, and when they actually make up the pieces, they make the front so that one shoulder is uncovered, and they make the back so the other shoulder is uncovered, so they won't join up. So there's a bit of a communication breakdown there somewhere, and that's a big panic about that and what they're going to do about it. Poor old Meadow doesn't feel very well. She's taken poorly and has to leave for a moment. And then we see Tom giving her a lovely little pep talk and saying, you know, when I was in my diving, if I had a bad day, it didn't define my diving, and this doesn't define you as a knitter, and all this kind of thing. It was really sweet, actually. And she's able to come back in. So yeah, the plan then how to join their wonky jumper, because obviously they've got these two pieces that won't join together properly. Then Tom announces that there's an hour left. Tracy says to him, oh, take a dive, Tom. Just so funny. She's brilliant. And Tom's like, take a dive? What? So yeah, lots of quick changes and mad sewing together, and it's all a bit panicky. The way they edit it is very kind of, it's all very rushed at the end. I don't know if it's actually like that in real life or not, but they edit it to be very rushed at the end. And then the time is up, and it's time for the big reveal. And you have to remember it's judged blind. So the judges come back in, and they have a 80s music and flashing lights moment. And they have 3 models coming down the catwalk with the newly created jumpers on them. So remember that they're judged blind again. So the first team that's judged is the balloon team. And the judges are quite harsh again. So they're saying the sleeves are too long and the balloon in the back's wonky. But they do admit it's a nice touch with the balloon strings. They like that. They then judge the checkerboard team, and they said they loved the design. They said the tarsia was really nice, and the bow was lovely detail. And then they said there was a real sense of team cohesion and singing off the same hymn sheet. At which point Lydia was like, singing off the same hymn sheet. They were just completely opposing views. It was so funny. And then they announced the guitar team's overall design. They said it was very ambitious, but the intarsia was very holy. So I think that's where, when you do intarsia, you don't twist the strands behind to kind of keep it together. If you don't twist the strands, you get a gap between the two colours. And they spotted the big mistake of the shapes being wrong, and they said, you know, obviously something really has gone wrong here. So consequently, in 3rd place was the guitar team. In 2nd place was the balloon team, which means in 1st place was the checkerboard team. And they said that they couldn't tell that was 3 different knitters, which lent it a great quality of cohesion. So there was some discussion then about who might go home. So I think it's going to either be Stephanie, whose icon sewing skills weren't the greatest, and the 80s jumper that she was part of, which was the guitar jumper, was not a success. And then they discussed Meadow, her over-ambitious design and lots of intarsia mistakes. And she didn't seem to cope very well with the intarsia at all. And obviously she was part of the guitar team challenge as well. They then discussed who's going to be Big Knitter of the Week. So it could be Holger, whose design skills are exquisite, they say. Or Lydia, because she had a great design in the dog challenge. She designed the feather and fan dog coat that was Notting Hill inspired. So Big Knitter is announced as Holger, and he gets the badge. Oh, I hate that pun so much. It's awful. I'm not sure I can cope with that every week. He gets the badge. And they just say that they're really impressed with his dog coat design. They said it was beautifully designed. They loved the balloon sleeves and everything. And then they have to announce who's cast off, and it's poor wee Meadow. Oh, I'm really disappointed to see Meadow go. She has since released a wee video saying she was unwell due to period issues, and she's lightheaded and I guess cramps as well. And that's why she stepped out. And so I think it was edited that she got stressed by the guitar motif, and I think really it was just she wasn't very well. And possibly, well, she says she wasn't overwhelmed, but I'd say anybody would be overwhelmed in that situation, so I don't know. But she's since started a knitting degree in London, and she's doing really well at that. And her video is really positive, and she seemed to come across really confidently and as if she's really enjoying life at the moment. So that was really nice to see. But I'm really sad that she's gone, because obviously she's from Northern Ireland, so am I. So she's the one I wanted to win, so she's gone now. So we're down to 8 knitters. So next week I wonder if they'll be back 2 teams of 4 knitters for the team challenge. So next week they announced that they're going to be doing swimwear. Swimwear, oh my God. What could possibly go wrong? And they've got to crochet a deck chair cover is the crochet challenge, or is the team challenge next week. So yes, that was episode 2. Tell me what you thought. I loved it again. I thought it was really fun. I thought the dog outfits were just really funny. I loved the 80s inspired jumpers. And in fact, I think is it Rowan? I want to say, it might be Rowan, or it might, don't quote me on that, but I think it's Rowan. I've brought out a pattern for the winning challenge, for the winning team rather, for the checkerboard design. So I think it was pink and purple with checkerboard design diagonally, and then the bow on top. And actually one thing I didn't mention earlier was that Holger, somebody mentioned this week that Holger's knitted swatch, his tension swatch, was what they used to cinch the bow in. So that was a really nice little touch. They used that they already had. I thought it was really good. So yeah, so Rowan have released a pattern, so you too can make your own one-armed bow detail checkerboard jumper, which I have to admit I am a wee bit tempted by, because it looked amazing, and I just love it. It's very cropped woolly jumpers are quite the thing at the moment, so it looked quite modern as well, even though it was inspired by the 80s, which was what, 40 years ago. But yeah, so that's interesting to know that there is a pattern available. Although I do wonder if they've credited the designers, being Holger, Tracy and Lydia, or if they've not been credited, because that would be a bit of a shame. I bet they haven't been credited, but I'm making that assumption. I don't actually know, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, you can buy that pattern if you want to. So yes, that was week 2. I thought it was great. I thought the 80s challenge was a really fun one. I loved seeing the 3 different designs come together. And I mean, obviously it's edited to be quite dramatic, because they can't edit it to be boring, can they? So there's probably a bit of artistic license going on there. But although I thought it was great again. Seems to be again a bit of a confusion about crochet and knitting, but I think once you get your head around the fact that that's going to be the case, you just kind of don't worry about that too much. It's not going to be a perfect TV show. Yes, it's a shame that they aren't explaining crochet and knitting properly. I mean, the pictures they used for the 2 of them were just ridiculous. So I don't know again if those were AI generated or what, but they were just ridiculous. That was a big mistake on the producer's part. But at least they did try to show that there is a difference between crochet and knitting, so that there was that. But yeah, great episode, and I'm very much looking forward to episode 3, which is on tonight. So I'll try and get that to you in a bit more of a timely fashion and kind of catch up with myself a bit. And in the meantime, I'm going to keep on knitting my Sophie scarf, which is here. Yes, you heard me right, knitting. It's actually knitted on a cable needle, which is quite groovy. Really loving it. It's a Sophie scarf, the one that's actually a Sophie shawl. The one that's kind of gone viral over the last year or so, and lots of people are knitting it. And my friend Julie, who was with me last week, showed me how to do it, so I can now do an I-cord etching. Get me, look, I-cord etching, not too bad if I do say so myself. So yeah, that's my knitting, which I'm going to carry on with, and I shall speak to you all next week. So until then, have a great week, happy crafting, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.